The outline of the shattered window glowed gently as the darkness crept in, and there he saw her, perched on the sill as if daring him to follow. She disappeared in a blur as he leapt from the branch upon which he had been standing. He let the small breeze catch easily under his delicate wings, and floated like a dart towards the crumbling house. As he flew in through the broken glass, he saw a pale brown flash merge into shadow as it rounded a corner. He followed more slowly, hopping from place to place amongst the cracked furniture, with just a short burst of his wings. The colours of the room were disappearing, only faint patches bravely pushing against the fade that had its clutches on the rest of the house. The birds had arrived as the outside world crept in. Reams of ivy sat smugly in bunches, and thick branches curved and wound their way about the room. They carved the house into nothing but another landmark in an environment ruled by the local creatures. Spiders hugged the corners with glistening webs of silk. Worms roamed the floors with the rats, devouring the remains of what was left. The wren left the room where he so often came to feast, gliding round the corner and soaring up the dark staircase with only a few soft wing beats, allowing himself to drop softly through the air before spreading his wings to deftly catch himself. He perched his round body atop the banister, waiting for a sign of where she might be hidden. The house was alive with noise. The walls were creaking and moving, and the chatter of the thousands of its inhabitants washed easily over the little creature, who had ears for only one sound. The wren's head flicked towards one end of the corridor as music crept through an open doorway, becoming louder as it found its voice more clearly. The chorus rang in his ears, each beautiful tone complemented perfectly by the next. It drew him to wing and sent him soaring down the corridor towards the divine song. He hovered for a moment to stare at a painting hung outside the door from which the music was emanating. Its image was just barely visible, but the shapes came alive through the wren's eyes. He flitted about, transfixed by the gentle landscape. Several gargantuan black forms were frozen in the frame, their dark wings outstretched. He didn't recognize the creatures, but felt an unshakable sense of familiarity draw through him. But the image was soon shaken from his mind, as the song once more filtered its way through the air and drew him into the room. It was still. A soft silence laid like a blanket as the song ceased and the wren saw her, stood against the open window as the first glints of sunlight had begun to rise from below. The wren flew towards her. The floor was painted a thick dark red, but otherwise remained relatively untouched by the decay of age, protected at the peak of the house, the only window small and sat high on the far wall. The wren landed lightly on a figure slumped against the bed. Bones stuck out against its pale sunken skin, and crooked hair fell away beneath his claws as he crept about its stiff head. He called out to her, his notes stiff compared to hers, but when her tune came whistling back, he zipped up to the window to stand beside her. He glanced quickly back at the room, and the figure still sat slumped against the bed. It held tightly to a small square of paper, pressed against its chest with long, blackening fingers. The wren paid no mind. He called again to indicate the direction he was heading, and the two birds hopped gently from the window, moving swiftly towards the outline of a tree, which sat stark against the sunrise. Their brown feathers smudged into shadow as they distanced themselves from the crumbling house.